Fair point.
Is that grumpy enough?
Our very first
very
guest, he
grumpy.
didn't need any
Very
of that to
grumpy.
play
No, he was a great
football
player.
because he was an absolute dominating player. In
Superstar.
fact, he's called he's called the Dominator.
He is a
and Wayne
dominator.
Johnston joins us from the Carlton Football Club. Welcome to Grumpy Old Men.
Giveaway, mate. Boys,
Yeah.
How did you get the
Wayne.
nickname the Dominator?
That's right. That's a great name to get.
Who gave it
Well,
to you?
I actually got it at a nightclub.
What time in the morning?
Thanks for
Where'd that
joining us
come
on
from?
Grumpy Old Men. It's been
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
We'll
true.
catch you next week on Grumpy Old Men. We'll come back with an absolute superstar from the Carlton Football Club.
Well, it was a true story at Chase's nightclub back in 1979-80. Frequently the footballers would visit there and we'd get looked after, and in those days the VIP area was just up the stairs and sit at a round table.
And this was after a Saturday afternoon
I think
game.
it might have been after
or
the
night
Pies
games
one.
in.
Would have been
the
after
Pies,
the
that'd
Pies
be
one,
right.
because that was one of the few times we'd actually really go out and celebrate. And there was Val Perovic, Mark McClure, myself,
Val
Jim
had both
Buckley,
his shoes on.
and probably Michael Young. So it must have been around the 79-80 period. And a lot of girls congregated upstairs, and I said to the boys, "Look, don't worry, I've got this situation under control. I'll dominate this whole issue. I've got it right. Just leave it to me." And the next thing I know, it was 3:30 in the morning. My head's on the table like this.
Asleep.
The girls are gone and the boys are gone, and I've missed the boat. And the bouncers have tapped me on the shoulder saying, "Hey, Dominator,
Yeah,
how'd you go?" And so it smelt of I got set up there somehow, and it got back to training the next morning. And at Carlton, our 9 o'clock training sessions were a ritual, and there was soccer, and it filtered back to the McClures, and that was I dominated and hadn't dominated, and so the Dominator name came out that morning, and the Armstrongs and Keoghs and Ashmans and such were just into me. And in those days, it wasn't a nice thing to be called the Dominator. It sounded like you had a big head. I did anyway, but I just didn't need to have that.
Well, that's destroyed all those young kids who thought he got his name because he just dominated on the footy field, didn't it? Eh? It was in a
It's
nightclub.
destroyed us, Bob, because we were saying before, of course, players used to go home straight after the game and sit down with their wife or their girlfriend and have a cup of tea, hot Bonox.
You've got no
sit
idea,
down,
you two.
listen to the radio and a bit of,
way.
music. Henry Mancini, a bit, a few of those beautiful tunes over the years. So it's not new that the players we find at 5:30
I used to listen to
AM in the morning.
Johnston.
Well, I think back in our day, and to be really honest, I don't think there was much open at 5:30 in the morning in our day. Look, Sunday nights, you'd probably be lucky to get a drink after 10 at some places, maybe midnight if you were really lucky. And I really think 1, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning was about the max. But in those days too, 0.05 wasn't such a drastic issue in terms of the law. It was a terrible thing that was going on, but it certainly straightened a lot of people up. And,
Well, a couple of weeks ago now, you had a big reunion. Now, we need the strength. What time did you get home after the reunion at the Crown of all the great champions of Carlton?
Well, I've had a few days to think about it. It was. I was lucky. My fiancée, Kate Kendall, couldn't come that particular night, so I took my daughter, who's just about to turn 18, and I took my 2 sons, and they actually both had to play football the next day. My daughter got home very late, but the boys and I got home about 11:45.
Well, there you are.
Would you like your daughter to go out with an AFL footballer?
As long as it's not for Vola, I'd be happy. No, they're good mates, actually. They're good friends. But I don't know. My daughter goes out with a lad from Brisbane, has been for some time. Actually, he's come down to Melbourne to live. I think footballers, in general, are fine young men, just like most other people are in different walks of life. In my entire life, I haven't gone through football and known somebody that's just a rotten egg to the core. People are different in all walks of life. In this environment that the kids are in, and I call them kids because I'm old enough to call them that now, is that some of them probably have a lot of idle time. They have an enormous amount of ammunition in terms of money.
That's right.
Expendable cash that we probably didn't have in our day. And they probably, if they're not secure in their future off the football field because they're not playing games, then geez, there must be this element of doubt, and that idle time sits that doubt in their mind as to what they can do. Like, if they don't make football in the next 4 years, what do they do after it? They go back to the VFL and get nothing, or do they secure a position elsewhere?
Did you play professional football or did you play it as a game?
I played football as a game. I actually never signed a contract at Carlton until the competition became the AFL in 1990.
And you were forced to?
Never signed a contract
Is
at
it
all.
fitting? Do you want
So
it?
what, you played on a handshake?
I played on a handshake, yes.
With who? Like Ian
Collar.
Collins?
Collar, yeah.
They used to come out and shake hands after every match.
With a brown
Take it-
paper
Yeah, that's
bag.
right.
Never saw a cash dollar in my entire football career from a supporter ever.
Ever?
Not
Not
out
even
from
after the
The
finals?
rumours of
Not even the handshakes.
no handshakes and no dollars. I mean, in the old days, I think some of the supporter groups used to give the club certain money for sponsorship, but we never. The only money I ever received was once again after a Collingwood game. Malcolm Fraser handed out $1,500 to the player he thought most epitomised the Carlton Football Club after a terrible pre-season. I received that $1,500 and I distributed that amongst the players.
He wasn't Prime Minister at the time, was he?
He was, yes.
Oh, there you go. Our tax money at work.
That's right.
I think he came out of his own kick. But I distributed to the players. The only one that wouldn't take it was Bruce. Brucey Dill wouldn't take the money.
Did Bruce play
much
for
money was
nothing?
$1,500.
Did Bruce play for nothing all the time, or did he get a?
Well,
did
he
he have a
was
salary?
He had to get paid.
Well, I don't know. If he said he didn't take any of the 15, he might have been one of those. I knew a couple of fellas that never got paid.
He might have voted for Labor.
Oh, I didn't say we didn't get paid. We always got. The beautiful
got
thing about
paid.
Carlton was we always got paid. And
No, I didn't mean it like that, but some fellas never wanted to play for money.
well, it didn't interest me a great deal. Not until I found debt. But
Lovely line. Love it.
no, football was great. I mean, I lived for it. I mean, I was stockbroking over a lot of my football career, and I was fortunate I was able to get to training by, say, 3:45, 4 o'clock, and I would always be first tripped. I'd love to go out in the track and have a kick.
It was pretty hard for you early, though. You had a couple of chances when you went down earlier. Carlton
Yeah.
didn't make the grade,
No.
which, you know, everybody's saying you're the dominator and you played some great football, but it was hard early.
Well, I was never prepared to play AFL football or VFL football. I'd come from the VFA. Twice from the VFA, I'd snuck over to Carlton to try to get it right at the ages of about 16 and 17 to try for the under-19s.
Why Carlton?
Well, it was the zoning. I was living in Wanda North, and one side of the road was Footscray, the other side was Carlton. So I was
Everybody
zoned.
says that, Dougie.
Yeah.
One side was always
Well, it's true.
frustrated out of someone else.
And where I played football out of Paran, they had a close association with the Melbourne Football Club. The Townsends, the Keneally's, the Empsals, they all went via there. So there came the juggling act. So I went to Carlton as a 16 or 17-year-old to play in the under-19s. I didn't make the cut. I came back again as a 20-year-old, and I just couldn't handle the pre-season to the extent whereby the club rang me and said, look, we've got a practice match for you, but it's in the under-19s. But I was actually 20. So it's basically telling me I don't think I was going to get a game in the reserves or seconds. I was lucky enough to come back the following year at 21, and I was far better prepared and made a good gist of it.
So John, just going back to, I'm just amazed at you. There's no contract, just a handshake, and you just. Why would you do that? Why would that be the case?
Well, basically, I don't think the money was all that great a thing to talk about. Look, I think I remember signing a clearance form. We did a trade from a guy called Ian Zernett, went to Paran, and I came to Carlton, and I don't think there was any great money's exchange from the two clubs. I signed I think it was a 3-year contract. I got 8,000, 10,000 and 12,000.
So just a trust there too, John, just a trust?
Well, it just was a thing. I mean, I had a good relationship with the club with regard to that. And they assisted me in every wake of life, you know, through the good and the bad times.
Did you love the club and love the training?
I loved it, yeah. I couldn't wait. I couldn't think of anything better to do than
to
even
get
wake
to
up with a
training.
hangover on a Sunday morning and go to training. I thought, this is where I've got to be, this is where I want to be. And it was tough actually leaving Sunday afternoon. You'd get there Sunday morning, and to get out of the place Sunday afternoon after watching you guys on World of Sport
that's right. Yeah, that's
was
right.
tough, was hard yards. Thank God we had the VFA in those days. We could go and watch a VFA game and then get home at night.
We
So
had
who
to
was-
go home to our kids that
Well,
Sunday,
I
didn't we?
I didn't
We
have
had to
kids
go
in the
home.
early days, but
Yeah.
Who was the coach who actually said, I want Wayne Johnston? Who was the one who actually saw the talent that enabled you to play 209 games?
well, it was interesting. Jezza was at Carlton, and when I arrived there, and I actually was probably the first players ever to have a manager, a gentleman by the name of Jack Craypot and Ruben Benkel, who I think Ruben's on the board, or used to be on the board at Melbourne. And they took 10% of my first year's pay. I think it was $800. I would
With the
have had
handshake,
8,000.
10% of the handshake.
Anyway, they wanted me to go to the Melbourne Football Club because we didn't see much expansion for myself at Carlton with the Ashmans, Buckleys, Sheldons, Harms,
Marcou's there?
Marcoux, Francis, Young. They just kept, and then you had the Keoghs and the Armstrongs to turf out as well. So it didn't look all that bright for me. But Jesse said, no, I want to look at every player, because if you remember, Alex had a fine ending to the 78 season. I think they finished, Collingwood belted them in the final, but he'd had a very good year. And they wanted to give him another chance, obviously, and he wanted to look at everybody. And I was lucky enough to, once again, the practice matches came along, and I wasn't in the main practice, but the seniors and the reserves game. I actually got put in the under-19 game again. And I was half dirtied up and thought, that's it for me, I'm back to Paran. I was very happy at Paran. Dennis Collins dropped out with an illness, and I happened to slip into that game. I kicked 5 in that game, and from there I went to the game in Bendigo, to the game over in Fremantle, to the game at Princes Park, to the first game against... Actually, I played my first game on Neil Danaher, who played his first game at the same day. We played on each other in the year 1979.
Was he as hard a coach as we are led to believe, Jesselenko? Was he? I mean, for such a magnificent player and that, and having all the skills, did he train himself as hard as the others, or was it natural with him?
I wouldn't think it would be possible. Jesse was quite hard. He had a fitness coordinator, George Frigo, who could only count in tens. So everything was in tens. It didn't matter what it was in tens. It was awfully bloody difficult. Jesse was a hard taskmaster when he felt that you didn't perform to your optimum. If he felt that you tanked it or hadn't put in the required effort on the day, then hell would break loose. And believe
Tuesday
me, it would.
night would be hell.
Tuesday night was hell. Well, I think we lost 3 games in 79. We did lose 3. To North Melbourne by a point, to Geelong by a point, and Trevor Keogh was actually running into an open goal to kick the damn thing, and he nearly fell over and couldn't kick it. We were filthy on him because it was hell that week. We lost the second last home and away game to Collingwood, but we were 3 or 4 games clear on top of the ladder. It rested a few, and we got beaten by 14 points in that game. So our aggregate losing score, I think, for the year was something between about 15 to 21 or 22 points. That was a losing aggregate. I think it's a pretty low losing aggregate over the course of a year.
You talk about the Mosquito fleet. At Paran, did you play rover centre? Because when you went to Carlton, nearly your whole start of your career was as a half-forward flank, which everybody says is starvation corner, really. It's pretty hard for a small bloke.
Well, I played half-forward at Paran, but you've got to understand, playing half-forward in the VFA, there was no wingers. And it was good. My athleticism was tested quite regularly in the VFA. My athleticism wasn't that good. The John Townsends of the world said to me that at a young age at 17, 18 at Paran, I wouldn't make an on-baller for a good 4 or 5 years until I'd built up an endurance base, because I'd been really a slack trainer in terms of the running ethic. And I think I didn't touch a weight my whole career anyway, period. So I didn't have a great work ethic in certain aspects of football, but in other areas I had a quality work rate.
You played in 4 grand finals, winning grand finals, and when the name Wayne Johnston comes up, we talk about finals. You're a great finals player, and the dominator, I thought it come from your finals.
So did I.
That's what I thought it was, because every time I look back over the Carlton grand finals that you played in, Wayne Johnston was always had his hand up. Why were you such a great finals player?
Well, first of all, that game, Louis Richards and Tom Pryor, Pryor used to love to nail Carlton people because he was a mad bomber and hated us with a passion. So he stuck the Dominator tag on in the paper with Louis to make it stick in the negative, and it turned around to bite him on his gigantic backside. Yeah, so that was good. I think for a start at Carlton, I remember Barry Armstrong coming up to me during the season of 79 and said, "Listen, young Jono, I've got to tell you, we have an amazing chance to win a premiership." And he'd obviously been involved in a premiership at Carlton, and I was quite bewildered with that comment. I'd just played in a premiership at Paran, which I thought was the pinnacle of my life and career. It was amazing. And for him to come up and say that to me, it actually just sort of hit me right between the eyes. And I wasn't there to win a premiership. I was there just to get a game and to play some footy. And all of a sudden, this bloke's telling me we can win a premiership. And I think that particularly one, we played the Pies that year. We had 10 players, I think, 21 and under. Back in that particular day, starting from myself being the oldest through to the McConvilles, the Francises, the Youngs, the others that we'd mentioned earlier, even to the Peter Browns. Sheldon Buckley, well, they were 17, 18. They were 3 and 4 years younger than me, 5 years younger.
How did you handle the fact that you'd won the premiership in 1979? Jezza, of course, was the coach, and then all of a sudden the big bust-up. Jesselenko, Ian Rice, Harris, of course, the president, and the coach was gone, and all of a sudden Percy Jones was the coach.
Yeah, well, I was talking to my son about it just the other night, saying that you wouldn't believe that this club busted up.
Overnight?
Overnight, I mean, I was Jesselenko mad. And whatever George said went anyway. A bit like Graham Richmond, I think, in those days at Tigerland. You'd never dare say anything back to them, you just agree. And when it busted up, it affected me greatly. I mean, I just lost the player I admired most in the football world as a kid, even though I barracked for Geelong. To watch Jesselenko play football was just something marvellous.
That's right.
And when he left, it left a big hole in my heart and a big hole in my mind, and I found it difficult. The big bust-up was nasty, and they kept the younger guys like us away. But when Perce came on as coach, you just saw the inexperience of a new coach coming into the fore. Even though Jezza wasn't all that inexperienced a coach, it had good leadership from within. It came through. With Perce, I think we finished on top. I think nearly 1980. but we'd only turned over something like 30 players for the year. We got to the finals, a bit beaten up and busted up. We played Richmond at Waverley and then we got belted up and left us sore and sorry, and played the Pies in the semi at the MCG and got belted again. So I think the upheaval made everybody a little bit tense, a little bit too scared to try new blood and bring them through as they'd done the previous year. Have great faith in what you had. What they had gave them their best, but they were just broken down at the end of the day. We were grumpy old men, to say the least, by the end of it. Then, of course, Parkin came, and, I mean, not every day you get a Besusto and a Hunter knocking on your doorstep, but he rotated, and I think he had 37 played by round 12, and players had actually been rested, and if any sign of injury, it was just a difference in professionalism.
Here we are.
There's Jezza there kicking the ball down, the famous 25. Might like to take us through just some of these players. There's great Jimmy Buckley, number 16.
Who was 17?
And there's
Rodney
the
Gold.
famous number
Rodney
7.
Gold.
Came from St Kilda.
I remember that goal, actually. There's a bloke on me, Higgins, was giving me a hard time.
Who, Kevin Higgins?
Yeah, and I hadn't had a kick in the first quarter. I think I kicked 4 this quarter. I didn't let him know in the walking off at half time how it was going.
Now, we often talk about the players kicking the ball well these days. I mean, those two kicks, that's just come straight from the centre knockout, and you've gone bang, put it on the boot, and you've kicked it 65, 70 metres.
You really went that far?
Yeah, I reckon it did.
It's about 80.
Just take it, Dano, take it.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
You've got to wear it.
No 50-metre line in those days.
No, there wasn't. It
Great
was
flick.
just something we're talking about. We're talking about today at a function at Melbourne High School was that I coach at TAC Cup level, and I'm the skill development coach. We're actually putting boys through the kicking process of actually kicking distances, angles, short, medium, and long, simply because at the moment they're creating athletes and just
Who
say
don't
kick
have-
the ball 35 metres and follow on.
That's right.
Once they're put under pressure, or they have to kick a goal that wins a game, or kick to a spot that
They're not up to
really is needed to, they can't do it.
Do you reckon we need a national program for that at different levels, like from under 8 to 12, 12 to 16, 16 to 18?
Well, look at the ludicrous people that said we're not going to tackle. I don't know what it's like here, but up in Queensland, you can't tackle from 9, 10, 11 and 12. If they turn 12 and they want them to kill each other on a full ground.
Yeah.
There should be some preparatory work for these kids even at that level. But I think that next year is going to be the year of the kick. In Australian rules football, I understand.
I've just seen you kick another great goal there, Wayne. I mean, you kicked a lot of goals in your career, 283 goals, so nearly 300 goals.
That's a right footer, that's a dodgy.
Did you like a goal, Wayne, or do you love it?
Oh, I loved it.
I reckon as a youngster I really loved it, but I really got a bug for to go to the centre square and get involved. And then I actually lost the... You take a forward away from the forward line, and I think he loses his smell and his scent for it. I mean, Kev was a great rover, and I watched Kev, and he kicked goals as a rover. He went up forward and was just a bloodhound, for a goal, and that's what you need. And I'd lost that edge to do that.
Once you moved up the field.
Yeah, I wanted to be up the field, and I'd lost that edge because I couldn't stand being sedated for a little while.
Can I ask you about your centre bounces? I have played against you in a number of finals, and I would think you are the best centre bounce player, or one of, ever in the game, and I'm not saying that lightly, but you had great ruckman,
Yes, we did.
Fitzpatrick, Madden, and a few other blokes. Jones when he was going, but it takes courage to watch the ball in the centre bounce and read off the pack like you do, but you did it so well. Was it the setup in there, or you just had a confidence you knew you could read the ball there?
I think that there's no doubt that if you have got a ruckman like Justin Madden, and look, with all respect to Nick and to Fitzy, they wouldn't have laid a glove on him in the centre bounce. They wouldn't have laid a glove on him. And his ability to stand there under the pressure and dink the ball to where we wanted it, that's half the battle. I mean, if we know where it's going and we've got a fair indication that he's going to win it, then the odds have got to be in our favour no matter how well we get touched up. I mean, Tony fixed me up at Waverley one day, by just pushing me under the ball.
You said I hit you.
No, he wouldn't.
Oh, you're giving up yourself.
Absolutely.
He gave me a hiding out of the middle and a hiding around the packs. It was a good lesson for me to learn. But yeah, it is difficult in the centre. You do need to keep your eyes on the ball. I think you do need to be a brave person in there.
Yeah.
But I think you also have to be technically very correct and very smart, not to move too quick, maybe to prop and cop a little bit. A bit like McGough.
Yeah.
The kid at Collingwood, he props and cops and sits there and delivers the ball out. You get some guys that try to tread the light fantastic and get quickly out of there and take the ball on the fly, but that doesn't really happen all that often.
The whole secret of the game is to be able to read it, where you want to go to get the ball, don't you?
Well, I think there's a thing of technique and the way that you handle yourself in those situations, but I think the sound mind, we're talking about it today, that give me a good footballer with a sound mind, we can make him into a little bit of an athlete, and we can certainly make him strong. Give me an athlete who's not quite the best, and put him into a football situation, and he's not the best at that.
No.
He's not going to be the best at all any time.
Good point. Very
Did you ever think that Justin Madden was going to turn out to be the Victorian Sports Minister.
Well, I've got to tell you, at one stage there, I'll give you an interesting story. I think it was '84. I was captain. He was in the he was reserved for the reserves after he wore that blasted stack helmet for low-flying planes because he couldn't get a kick in a stampede to save himself, and he was just awful. And in that particular year, he finished off in his 3 finals games that year, I think it was. He had 51 marks or something in his last 3 games. He won our best and fairest with a record score. And he just went from that level, he just took off, and he was a marvellous player. Educated fella, and always to the point with his conversations, but a gentleman. And he spoke the other week at our function, and he said he never went to any of the functions, and he was dead set right. But no, I didn't think he'd ever be the Minister of Sport, but God help us, I'm glad he is.
Are educated fellas good footballers most of the time, or you think you want the ruffians?
Well, I think educated footballers are smart people, yeah. I think an educated footballer, they're very few and far between. There
are some people, Bob, who maybe not well educated, but they've got a fantastic football brain, haven't they?
That, yeah.
Great football brains. And you
it interests me, like, I played with some great players that had that. They talk about Whitnell at Carlton, for example, so has a great football brain, but you have to ask the question then, why do there's other areas of the game other than just that. You have to be prepared to go to battle today in these circumstances.
Did you find yourself at Carlton when you were a star that other clubs tried to snip Wayne Johnston from Carlton? Did anyone try?
Collingwood. Collingwood tried to snip Wayne Johnston.
When was that?
Yeah,
when was that, John?
That was 83 or 84.
I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
They didn't have the right handshake.
Well, you had another 7 years left because you played through
Actually,
the 1990s.
I made in an economical sense, I made a huge blunder. A couple of private businessmen came to me, and I'll be straight up. They were going to pay the mortgage off at the home, $50,000 a year, and give me the licensed grocer dealership on the corner of Cotham Road and
which David Cloak
took the contract. And you got to remember, and on those days I was getting, as I said, I got 8 in the first year, 10, 12. I went.
I'm trying to think what I was on at Collingwood when you got 50 off at 50.
Huh? So, and then it went up to 30, and Carlton.
Why did you knock it back? It sounds like a fantastic deal.
Look, in those days, our battles with Collingwood were almost tribal.
Legendary.
You hated them, didn't you? You hated us. You hated each other. You always played well against
I had never had an after-match drink at the Collingwood Football Club, and they'd never had one with us. Never had one.
Gee, I couldn't believe that.
I had never spoken to. I don't think I spoke to a Collingwood player outside of the football arena.
Yeah, exactly. You did plenty of that ever.
That's true, and it wasn't that I didn't like it. It was just that it was just didn't happen too often. I mean, they drank at the tunnel. We went somewhere else, thank God.
Did you go back to Carlton and say, you won't believe this, but I've just had this fantastic offer. They're paying off my house. I've got the licensed grocery shop in Cotham Road. Yeah. $50,000 in the hand. What are you going to give me?
Well, didn't you know what happened? They bugged the office that I was working in. Went and told Collo, and they got a private investigator down, a guy called David Lenton or something, whatever it was. They bugged my office, and they got it on tape.
Then we were up in the money.
So they took it to the AFL or the VFL tribunal, and just as about to go in, the Silvio Fascini case came up, saying it was a restraint of trade or whatever. So
it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. It all ended. And in the end, I didn't get the money. Collingwood didn't get fined, and Fascini got to go to where did he go? To St Kilda, I think. He got to go to St Kilda.
And because the amount never come out, Carlton said, "Oh, you better cop this 25."
They went up a little bit, but then a lot of other things kicked in then.
There are some great players. You mentioned before about Kenny Hunter and the buzz Peter Bazzusto came across. The other day, of course, there was a great mark taken by Ashley Sampi, but there was a great mark taken by the Buzz. I think it was in front of the George Heatley stand.
Yeah, it was.
It was one of the greatest marks I think we've ever seen.
It was an amazing mark. A bit like Sampi, he kept his feet, and actually Buzz walked backwards, crouched knees, and flicking the ball between his fingers as he went back, and kicked the goal.
Yeah, and the best thing he said, well, now I've kicked the goal of the day. I got the mark of the day. I got the daily.
Well, he did the daily double after he kicked the goal against Geelong at Waverley. It was
smothered off in Nankivell.
What Buzz had was he had an unbelievable acceleration for about not even 10 metres, maybe for 5 to 6 or 7 metres. Amazing acceleration. Then it'll wane off a bit, but he was very good at that, and he could hit very hard.
Was he confident, Jono? Was he?
Oh, look, the thing is, the bloke is he didn't drink, didn't smoke, and he was never that fit, but he could elevate himself into the air. He was a massive tackler. I mean, his defensive skills and keeping the ball in the forward line were phenomenal. I think for a one-year player in '81, I think he's as good as you're going to get. I don't know how he didn't win the best and fairest. I was very surprised. I mean, Hunter won the best and fairest. and Ashman was runner-up. I mean, they all had fine years, but geez, he was electrifying.
Well, there's another thing now. We're talking about the buzzers accelerating. Hunter was probably the most incredible, courageous player that's ever been, wasn't he?
Well, he had no fear. There's no fear factor. No, fear never scared him. He just went into battle and he would. Well, he had 2 or 3 broken jaws prior to coming to Carlton. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Slaying in WA.
Yeah, he's a laid-back guy. He's a quiet guy. He's a very honest fellow. And
he's skinny. He's got no weight.
He's got no weight, but incredibly strong.
Yeah.
And he could extend very well into the air. He played much taller than his height. Much taller.
Wayne, it's been fascinating catching up with the Dominator, straight from the nightclub. Stay on the couch with us for our next show because we've got a special guest coming up.